One of my absolute favourite, but quite often overlooked and sometimes even misunderstood features of the Darwin FTW pedals is the hoop clamp. Hey everyone, how's it going? Now, as I said, the hoop clamp is an amazing feature on these pedals. They're one of my favourites because it offers something completely unique and so practical that I wish every other pedal had. Firstly, I'm going to tell you why I love it, then I'm going to tell you why some people don't quite understand it, and then I'm going to tell you how we can get the most out of it. Now, what I love about this hoop clamp first and foremost is the fact that it can move backwards and forwards on these guide rails. That's so valuable because it allows you to change the position of your pedal in relation to the bass drum. We can move the pedal closer or further away from the batter head, which means that we can ensure that we always have a perfect striking angle of dead on 12 o'clock. Quite often, and you've probably experienced this yourself, bass drum beaters tend to overshoot and they don't land at 12 o'clock, they land past that. This is really inefficient. It causes a number of problems. One of the main workarounds is that people tend to lift up the front of their bass drum to try to correct the angle on the drum so that the beater strikes at 12 o'clock. And whilst this does fix that problem, it creates a whole host of other problems. So really, the bass drum should only be raised at the front as much as it is at the back. So have a look at how high the bass drum batter hoop is off of the ground by being sat on top of the hoop clamp, and then raise the front, the resonance side hoop, off of the ground the same amount. It should kind of look like the bass drum's just sat flush on the ground, but when you get down low and you have a look, no part of the bass drum is actually touching the floor. So this hoop clamp moving backwards and forwards allows us to correct that within the pedal. If you don't have a Darwin FTW pedal and you want a similar type of idea, ACD Unlimited make a beater called the M+1. It has a similar idea where the beater head itself can move backwards or forwards to allow for that angle of adjustment. If you put the M+1 with a Darwin, you have a really powerful combination where you can very quickly on the fly adjust that beater angle if you're doing a flying gig and you don't have time to muck about with the hoop clamp, or you could set it up more permanently if you want to make sure that the hoop clamp is set perfectly for your drums, and then you use the M+1 to correct for any fine tuning if you have to suddenly kit share or you're playing on backline equipment. Another thing I love about this hoop clamp is there's actually two sets of tracks, one on the left and one on the right of the bass plate. This means that whether you're playing double or single pedal setups, you can always be hitting in the middle of the bass drum or equidistant from the middle of the bass drum. The last thing that I love about this hoop clamp is really the main cause of misconception, and that's that it won't over tighten. Ultimately, you don't want the hoop clamp to tighten too much because you don't want to damage either the finish or the actual structure of your hoop. Instead, all we want is a nice secure connection from the pedal to the drum so that they move around as one unit or stay put as one unit. Now, I think the biggest cause of misconception comes from this idea that the purpose of the hoop clamp is to stop the pedal from moving away from the drum when you play it. That's not what it's for. The hoop clamp is to stop the drum from moving away from the pedal when you play it. ACD Unlimited is all about problem solving and making the most efficient product in the best way possible. So instead of trying to make a super grippy hoop clamp and rely on that to keep the pedal in place, Dennis has made it so the pedals stay put on their own, and you can have a good efficient hoop clamp with extra features that are really needed and not damaging your bass drum hoop in the process. Think about it this way. If the only reason that your pedals don't move around when you play is because of how tightly the hoop clamp grips onto that drum, your slave side on a double pedal would fly around all over the place because there's no drum for it to grip. Now, although some other pedals on the market do tend to suffer from this problem, the Darwins don't. And if properly set up, no pedal should. So if the hoop clamp isn't responsible for keeping the bass drum pedal in one place, what is? Ultimately, it comes down to a couple of things. And the first and most important one is playing on a proper drum mat or rug, whatever you want to call it, but one that's actually made for drums. This allows Velcro, spikes, whatever method you're using to keep your bass drum pedals in place to really grip and stay put. It will help your pedals stay where they are, and it will also help your drum stay where it is. So that leads us on to number 2. which is Velcro. The Darwin FTW pedals ship with Velcro, which you can stick to the underside of the pedal. This is my number one tip for anyone, regardless of what pedal they're on. If your pedal doesn't ship with Velcro, buy some Velcro and stick it on your pedal. It will glue them to your drum mat. The Velcro that the Darwin ship with is really, really grippy. Not so grippy that you actually struggle to get it up at the end of a gig, but grippy enough that once you've got it down, it's not going to move until you want to get it off of that mat. Obviously, keep in mind that number 1 and 2 work together. There's no point having Velcro if you don't have a proper drum mat to actually stick it to, and the drum mat isn't going to be nearly as effective without Velcro on your pedals. Next thing that keeps your pedals in place is the spikes. Most pedals will ship with spikes connected somewhere to the base plate, and although I much prefer the Velcro, the spikes can be useful, especially if you aren't able to get to a drum mat and you're playing something that's a little bit thicker. Spikes are useful, but they shouldn't be relied on entirely. In fact, this is one of the main causes of pedals moving around. If you overextend the spikes, you're doing the opposite of what you want. You're actually raising the base plate of the pedal off of the ground and suspending it on these 2 spikes like stilts. The spikes on the Darwin pedals are also very, very sharp, so a little goes a long way. As soon as you feel a little bit of resistance, the spikes are digging in, and then with the pressure of your foot actually playing that pedal, it's going to push in even further. Now, in combination with the Velcro, those spikes are going to make it so that even if you actually try to physically push the pedals forwards with your hand, you won't be able to. Now, the last thing I'm going to mention is kind of more of a bonus tip, because it actually does relate to how well the hoop clamp grips, and that's making sure that you have some type of grippy surface on your hoop, especially if you're playing a really good quality drum that's got very lacquered, super smooth hoops. Quite often, if you get a semi-pro or higher kit, they'll actually ship with a small strip of something that's quite grippy that you're supposed to stick onto that hoop to allow the bass drum pedal to not only not damage your hoop finish, but to grip it a little bit more efficiently so you don't have to over tighten. Now, if you're playing a really entry level drum that ships with metal bass drum hoops, or something like the vintage SONOR kit behind me that has metal hoops, they can be a bit of a problem because quite often they're sort of rounded over like 2 tubes with a big gap in the middle of those. And obviously that gap is where the hoop clamp normally wants to press down and grip. They'll normally come with a rubber insert that's supposed to fill that channel in the hoop so that you do have a nice flat and level surface for the hoop clamp to grip on. So make sure you have one of those in your metal hoops as well. So that's really how to keep your bass drum pedals in place. And as I said, that'll apply to any brand of pedal that you've got out there. As long as you're playing on a good mat, use some Velcro, you don't overextend the spikes, and your hoop has something grippy on it, those pedals aren't going anywhere. Now, in the playing example I'm going to show you, I'm going to set up my SONOR Vintage Series bass drum, and I'm not going to fasten the hoop clamp at all. I'm going to bring the drum to the bass drum pedal so you can see that I don't cheat, and then I'm going to hammer the hell out of it. Thanks a lot for watching. If you enjoyed the video or found it useful anyway, please like, leave a comment and subscribe. Don't forget to head over to ACD Unlimited's website to check out more about the Darwin pedals and the upcoming Phantom series pedals if you want a more affordable version of a Darwin. Thanks a lot, and I'll see you on the next one.